Welcome back to another episode of the Freedom Train podcast series. I am your host, Joseph Ward. As always, joined by the good homie, my co-host, the co-founder of this Freedom Train network, Mr. Patrick Irvin. I remember that the Freedom Train podcast series is brought to you by PAX Inc., and that's PACTSINC. And PAX Inc. is a Black development organization aimed at developing the Black community to its maximum potential through a focus on education and economics with the traits of hard work, honesty, and integrity. For more information, make sure you visit www.pactsinc.org. That way you can learn more about the organization, how you can get involved with the organization, how you can actually donate to the organization. And they have a plethora of educational resources that you can access. Also, on the front page of the website, you'll see something that says Amazon Smile. And for our new listeners, first of all, welcome to the greatest podcast ever. And so Amazon has a program called Amazon Smile, where when you purchase items off of Amazon, a portion of your proceeds go to a specific organization that you choose. So you can choose PAX Inc. as the organization as you sign up through Amazon Smile. Buy the things that you would normally buy, and just a portion of that will go to PAX Inc. So make sure you go ahead and check that out. And you can get more information about that at the website, once again, at www.pactsinc.org. And while you're online, make sure you visit our Freedom Train website at www.freedomtrainradio.com. That way you can learn more about myself, Joseph Ward, Mr. Patrick Irvin, the plethora of podcasts that we both have. You can check out our other podcast hosts, Queen Shelby, Queen Candace, as well as Enigma September. And we got a lot more coming up. Hey, remember, man, y'all go check out the interview that we dropped on Monday, our special interview with Khadijah Ward. She is an author and a Black activist over in London, and she's doing the thing. So she just dropped the book, Black Boy Boss, a affirmation book full of history for young Black boys, because, you know, a lot of times they don't really spend a lot on the self-esteem with young Black boys, but she got a lot going on and a great movement. So go check out that interview. It's on our YouTube channel. So Freedom Train Network on YouTube, as well as our website, www.freedomtrainradio.com. Pat.
Yo.
Love overboard. Remember that song?
Sorry.
Hey, I growing up, I thought that song said, aboard the boat, let them in here. I was just making up stuff. I didn't know what she was saying.
Clearly, you were just making up stuff.
Then when I found out she said love overboard, I was like, oh, love overboard. I was just saying, both. Hey, I really, both. I was really just making noise.
Yeah. Did you fail your hearing test?
Nah, that's what it sounded like to me.
Huh.
So
Above the boat.
I was legit. So.
Oh, that's right. That we gotta remember though. English ain't your first language, so it makes sense.
Hood it is. You must know, you hear me?
For real. Hey, so where we at? What we got? What we at? What we got?
Man.
What
Ooh. Man, keep it. Why you stop? I was finna go.
You caught me off guard.
Man, see, I be ready. I freestyle at the drop of a dime, because everybody know me and never coming from behind. Gotta go and get it because I'm fine as wine, and I keep my bald head with the shine.
Bars. Hashtag bars.
Hey, y'all better get y'all mind right. Hey, so welcome back to another episode of Freedom Train podcast series. We breaking down Ice Cube Contract for Black America Part 3. This is part 3 of our breakdown of Ice Cube contract with, I keep saying for Black America, it's a contract with Black America. And we've been diving into it. We've been breaking it apart. I know some people think we don't like it, but we just been diving into it, breaking it apart, and we're giving it an honest assessment according to how we feel it would help uplift and impact the Black community in a positive way to make us competitive people in this work. And that's one of the main things, is to make Black people economically, educationally, with resources, be able to be competitive in America. Wouldn't you say, Pat?
I would say.
So that's how we looking at it. How well does it make the Black Black people in America competitive in America to be able to build real generational wealth and close the wealth gap. That was created by slavery, and I got to take the chip. So, but man, everything going good with you though, Pat?
Yeah, man. You know, my eyes are white again as opposed to being yellow or red, which is their usual color. I managed to get 3 hours of sleep last night as opposed to 30 minutes. So we're doing good, man. We're doing good.
There you go. You was out there killing people and drinking blood again, huh?
Hey, man, it's against the masquerade policy to kill your victims. You just drain them and send them on about their way. I
got you, old vampire in Brooklyn ass.
Angela Bassett was in that movie, boy.
Oh, what? And that's Angela Bassett. Who that was? Earthquake? Don DC Curry. That's Angela Bassett.
Angela Bassett. Yes, sir. I showed my kids a picture of Angela Bassett the other day. They couldn't believe she was as old as she was. I said, hey, man. Well, when you got money, you should be able to take care of yourself. Yeah.
So
most definitely.
That's why, like, people be surprised that older Black women with money look good. They're like, well, shit, they got the resources to take care of themselves.
Right.
Ain't like they've been on Newports for 20 years.
Yeah. So, what we digging into?
Let's dig into this thing. So we got our screen sharing going on. See, we getting a little sophisticated. So Pat, you got the controls over there. So we start with the Judicial and Public Policy Reform. You heard me?
Heard me.
Make this full screen on my end so I can read it better. All right. So let's start with the first bullet point. So recognize racism as a public health crisis that mandates a federal response. Now, when I read that, the first thing popped in my head was like, man, that should have been mandated like 200 years ago. Like, but at the same time, of course, a racist system wouldn't mandate racism as a public health crisis, even though you see a lot of other things like being on crack, being on opioids is now a public health crisis. So I don't have a problem with this. I do think racism should be mandated as a public health crisis. But what is the teeth that will make this happen?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't have a problem with it. The thing that struck me was really, what does that do, and what does that mean? So, I agree wholeheartedly. Racism should be recognized. I don't know it like as a public health crisis, but definitely as a public emergency.
Yeah.
So, something that needs to be dealt with. I don't know that I like terming it as a public health crisis. But that being said, I'll openly admit maybe there are some sort of extra powers that are granted during a public health crisis that aren't granted during a public emergency. But that leads to the second question I have. Powers for whom? So if we're looking at like this administration, right? If we're looking at this like the Trump administration had public emergency powers to deal with racism, do we honestly believe they would do stuff to make it better for Black people?
Well, no. Hell, I don't believe Biden would.
Right.
See, that goes back to the last thing I said. Like, what are the teeth, or what is the accountability piece that would make that federal response happen? And that's one, going back to like what we said last week, I do think this needs to include action steps on how this will happen.
Right.
Rather than just saying this is what we want.
Right.
Especially with it being labeled, like we said last week, as a contract. The steps are usually laid out in the contract.
Right. And one other point I would make on this point is that they are talking about federal action.
Right.
And so, look, the federal government has more power to make sweeping changes than your local government. And they typically have less accountability because people aren't really involved in politics. So what would keep a program like or a situation like this honest would be Black people engaged in politics, where we can hold the politicians accountable. So there's a whole other
Yeah.
like black progressive issue there where black people by and large, ever since the 1877 compromise, have just not really participated in a political system, which means this again is another one of these things where it's basically like, okay, white people, do better, treat us nice, but how you do it, just, you're not accountable to us with how you do it, because we haven't taken steps to ensure that enough of us participate politically to control what happens. But please just do it anyways. And ain't that how we got the 94 crime bill?
Yeah. I mean, but see, well, that's one of the issues, and I know we've had conversations about that in the past. It's having pressure from the inside and out.
Right.
So, with that being said, to mandate a federal response, what will be the thing that makes the mandate happen and stick and actually be carried out?
Mm-hmm.
That would be my question with this. But like I say, and also this point here of it being like you're talking about it being labeled a public health crisis. So working in public health, like I do, I would think about resources, but all public health crises don't get treated the same.
Right.
So working in HIV, I can see the possibilities of resources, but also like look at tobacco. I can see the possibilities of resources in something like tobacco. I know here in Florida, the tobacco program, like don't nobody get money like the tobacco program, but HIV does get money. HIV does have resources to fight it, but will racism get the same attention, or will racism be seen as something like hepatitis C or something, in certain places? So that will be the question of what hammers that home.
Yeah.
So, all right. So next point is ban all privately run prisons. Fines established to be paid by companies that profited off of private prison systems. So, I mean, once I don't have no problem with it. Shit, ban the motherfucker. Ban them. Now, one of the issues with banning them is understanding the culture that has been created. A pipeline culture has been created, and when people talk about defunding police and shutting down certain prisons, I feel like they don't take into account the pipeline culture that has been created so these things can thrive economically. So if you want to shut down these things, but the culture still exists, the behaviors and things still exist, so the crimes will still exist. So how will that behavior be curbed? Because you still have to break that.
Yeah, this is one of the ones where on the surface I don't have a problem with it, but it really doesn't mean anything or do anything, because like people forget, like the worst atrocities that happened to black people in the prison system happened before private prisons were a thing. Like private prisons didn't become a thing until the mid 80s. With the creation, I forget what it was called, but it was in the mid 80s where private prisons became a thing. Prior to that, you still had black people getting brutalized and mistreated, put in jail too much, or overrepresented amongst prison populations. We had peonage, which was the precursor to the prison industrial complex. Yeah. You had all of these systems in place long before. You know what I'm saying?
All these systems were created to keep black people in check.
So my view, and I know a lot of people don't share this view, but my view of capitalism is why black people in America, if we choose to get our shit together, have more of a fighting chance than black people anywhere else.
Yeah.
Because we can get the resources to buy some shit, own it, and do whatever the fuck we want to do with it. You know what I'm saying? And have legal recourse to protect ourselves as well. And so when I look at like privately run prisons, I'm like, yo, why don't we get some? Why aren't these black billionaires and millionaires to keep champion? Why don't y'all buy the fucking prisons? Why don't y'all build your own fucking prisons?
Because they got ulterior motives.
So I'm like, so on the one hand, we have an opportunity here to legitimately take ownership of black people incarcerated, of that whole pipeline, and to be able to institute real change on a prison on that level. And instead of taking the steps to create those changes, we want to revert control of these institutions to the state that we also don't trust.
I'm gonna be real with you. I wouldn't trust those black millionaires and billionaires running those prisons, because I think they would see the potential in the money that they can make, and they would veer to the side of continuing what's going on to be able to keep the prisons running and to be able to make a profit off of it. Because if you buy something, you want to be able to profit off of it.
Well, true. I agree with you. I don't know that I would trust the rich people either. I definitely agree with that. But I just, like, to me, there's so much wrong with this idea that if we ban private prisons and if we find them, things will be better. Like, it's like things were bad. You could argue.
Things were always bad.
Yeah, and you could make a legitimate argument that things were worse when the state had control of the prisons. You know what I'm saying? Now, and that's not the mitigator to kind of like make light of the situation we have now. But then I'm also asking the question, and I get attacked a lot when I ask this question. What do you want done with the prisoners? Like the people that not the innocent people, but the people that legitimately did some heinous shit. What is your plan for those people? How would you treat them? What would you do with them? How would you house them? How would what sorts of things would you create for them?
So what answers do you usually get?
I usually get told that I'm just trying to justify the modern prison industrial complex.
That's a legit question. That goes back to what I was saying earlier about the pipeline coach. Like we have if I can go take a class on criminality and criminology, like I could take a class on the psychology of being a criminal. I can go take a class on the culture of criminals. Like, people have to understand that from a realistic point of view. Things happen for a reason. Cultures exist. People are accultured. People are brought up a certain way. People do certain things for a reason. Like, it's not just people just wake up, well, you know what? I feel like being a criminal today. Like, nah, that's built up. That's cultivated. Like, people have to really believe that that's real with that. So if you take away the prisons, like I said earlier, if you're going to be taking away the prisons, you have to also consider the culture, the pipeline, the prison culture that has been created, especially for black people. If you are determining that this person would go to prison and they in third grade, you got to have some alternatives.
Right. So I don't but that's this to me. This is one of those like hot button popular things that people like to talk about because it's popular, but they don't really want to go in any real detail about it because they haven't really thought about it like that.
Right.
And so in the critical thinking class that I teach, we actually had a project where the kids had to create a new prison system. And none of them could finish it because it was so comprehensive in such a tall order. None of the groups finished it. But They all had these strong opinions before we started about needing to ban privately run prisons.
Well, and I think a lot of kids and a lot of people are saying that because it's popular social media rhetoric. And people like to regurgitate popular social media rhetoric. That's why it's popular rhetoric. And so if everybody's saying it, if I'm not saying it, then I must be wrong. But a lot of times people don't understand just because the masses are saying it.
Yeah. So
the masses are often wrong.
So 100% on that. The masses are often wrong, and this is one of them things where I'm just like, oh, that's cute. Next.
Yeah, so prisoner labor not allowed without consent. Prisoners to be compensated at the minimum wage and hazardous pay provided for applicable duties.
Well, let me jump on this one first because I know I'm going to piss people off with this one. I disagree 100%. 100%. And this is why. A lot of people like to grip on the 13th Amendment. Not the 13th Amendment. Yeah, the 13th Amendment that says, slavery is banished except as a form of punishment. I don't have a problem with people being punished and being forced to do something that contributes to society for free. It's a fucking punishment. I do think we need to spend more time making sure that the people that are in prison actually deserve to be there. I think the whole front end needs to be reworked from scratch to ensure through objective reasoning and all of that the people that end up in prison actually belong there. But once you have been put in prison, I disagree totally with the idea that you shouldn't be forced to do some sort of labor. Now, and again, this is obviously in a perfect world, right? A perfect world, only the people that are guilty of crimes will go to prison. So in that world, I don't have a problem with somebody that murdered somebody being told that you're going to make boxes or tables or chairs or whatever for free for 12 hours a day as part of your penance to society. I don't have a problem with that. So when I see people talking about prison labor without consent, I'm like, okay, this is a place where people are supposed to be getting punished because America is a society for punishment. This is not a place where people are supposed to be, this ain't a day camp. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So if you want to solve this problem, in my opinion, you solve the problem on the end of let's make sure that the people that wind up in prison actually deserve to be in prison. And maybe that means we create a secondary type of holding area for people where we're doing due diligence before they actually get in prison. But once you're in prison, I disagree 100% with giving them a minimum wage. I disagree 100% with giving them hazard pay. I disagree 100% with needing to get their consent before you force them to do labor. I disagree 100% with that. And then the question also becomes, are you willing to pay for that with taxes?
Yeah. As I was reading it, I don't totally agree with the minimum wage thing. I don't totally agree with that. The punishment is there for a reason. That's what I'm looking at. Now, excessive punishment, I think things need to be restructured rather than totally done away with, because once again, we still have that culture that we have to look at that has been created to allow this to happen, because prisons are filling up for a specific reason. They're not just building these prisons to let them just sit there. So that's why I'm always side-eyeing anybody who's into owning prisons, because you're going to have to fill them up to be able to make a profit.
Right.
So I do think things need to be restructured, reworked to totally do away with certain things. Like we said earlier, I think that goes back to popular social media rhetoric, or popular rhetoric that has just been said in the streets. But once again, I also think a lot of emotion is put into a lot of this as well. So if it's coming from an emotional place, the actual breakdown of how will this really affect everything won't really be thought about. So that's kind of like what I think about when I saw that. When I read that, I was like, I don't think this is something that I would totally agree with. Also, you messing with billionaires' money. So will these people be really cool with not making money off these things that they've really been making money off of?
Well, I mean, That's a good point. And that speaks to the blowback or the backlash we would have to be ready for. I just don't see where this makes any real change. You already have people now who, when they get in a tight situation in various parts of society, they do something to get locked up for shelter or for whatever the case might be. I'm not saying they're out there, but we all know that there is a segment of the population where, when it starts getting cold, I know a few people personally, they do something to get locked up. Nothing serious, just something enough that'll get them a 2-day stay in the jail. But I'm looking at this like, okay, so if I'm struggling to make ends meet, I can go to prison, get minimum wage, hazard pay, 3 meals a day, and I don't have to work when I don't want to work. Like, so I'm just looking at it like, if we're going to be a nation that's about rehabilitation, then the prison system needs to be rebuilt from the ground up. If we're going to be a nation that's about punishment, then we need to be at peace with punishing people. And if we're going to try to be in the middle, then we need to find a better way to be in the middle. But I do think both of these points also have their root in this common misconception that the purpose of a business is to make profit. The purpose of a business is to provide value for its shareholders and its stakeholders. They determine what that value is. So if they determine that the value that they want from this business is to create a better society, then that's what that business is responsible for doing, for creating a better society. So if you could make changes to the way that prisons run simply by making changes to the morals and the values of the stakeholders, and that can be, or the shareholders, and that can be done simply by having black people become the primary shareholders of prison companies, publicly traded companies. If we become the primary shareholders of a publicly traded prison company, and we tell that company, we don't care about bottom lines, we want to see your prisoners achieving a certain level of quality of living, that's the goal that they now have to achieve. And but that goes into business and how things tie in. I look at both of these points and I'm like, these are popular talking points on social media that, in my opinion, have not been thought through. And maybe they have, but I haven't ever had anybody really explain to me the validity of these 2 points and the change they will potentially make in terms of bettering Black America.
Yeah, but see, once again, that's why we take our time to break these things down, right? And really critically analyze what's going on and what's being given to us, what's being said. Not just looking at things on the surface level. I learned that, like, especially when I started working at HIV/AIDS, to not really look at things just on that surface level, but you got to go deep. You got to go deep. You got to get up in there because, look, man, I love Cube. Cube is a bad dude. Scroll back.
I'm sorry.
Just need that last. I just want to remember this last point, but not like Cube is that dude. But once again, I don't blame Cube.
I don't either,
because there was some dudes who, this is like, the activism and stuff and structure and stuff and the organization is supposed to be what they do. And so if I'm correct, those people who helped him put this together, that's who I blame. Because it definitely, it has to have more teeth. It has to be more in depth. It has to be more structured. And it's not.
Mm-hmm.
And because I wanna see, we need to be able to read and see how we're gonna make white America do this.
Yeah, and we need to be able to read and see what the expected outcomes for these things are gonna be.
Right. And like, because if there's no how, what we talking about, we're wishing, and we're past the point to where we're just gonna be wishing that we can get things better. If we're gonna, especially if you're gonna talk about, all right, we got a contract with Black America. Hey man, this contract need to be First of all, this thing need to be thick. This thing need to be like 500. Oh, yeah. It need to be like 500 pages. Like, cause think about it. Like certain contracts that you would read for, hell, some of the damn contracts that you got to read for your damn computer and stuff, and all the stuff, your privacy policies more than this.
Yeah.
So that's my biggest thing about it is it doesn't have enough teeth. But once again, I don't blame Cube because Cube is not an activist. It's the people who, if I'm correct, the people who are supposedly who do this activism stuff, who do this organization stuff, who help him put this together.
That's, we talk about the 3 levels of critical thinking: the what, the how, and the why. This thing is basically all what, and that's surface level. That's first level critical thinking. What are we gonna do? And that's the easy part, and that's why it's so easy to kind of jump into this thing and kind of make it seem like we're ripping it apart because we don't like it. No, it's missing the 2 deeper levels. There is no how, and there is no why. Why are we? At the very least, you could have either a how or a why. You could pick one, but you can't present a what without the how or the how or the why. Right. Like so what? So even with the next point, declare the Ku Klux Klan a terrorist organization. What for? Why? What are we getting out of that?
I think that goes more on the emotional side than more of a practical thing because, first of all, the Ku Klux Klan is not going to declare the Ku Klux Klan a terrorist organization. I mean, let's just be real. Like we can't be always talking about, well, man, they just took off their hoods and put on robes and cop uniforms and these political uniforms, and then to come back and say these the same people that we want to hold the Ku Klux Klan accountable. Shit, they're not gonna. Come on, man. Like a dope boy gonna really be just with no pressure, just gonna say, yeah, I sell dope. Like, come on, man. That's not gonna happen. But I guess the for what, if I play devil's advocate, the for what would be to have, I guess, more teeth or more eyes on when those racial incidents happen. You can get more charges pressed and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, there are special resources and 3-letter organizations that have extra resources for terrorist organizations. But that goes back to what you just said. The Ku Klux Klan that's an organization that was at one point endorsed by the government.
I mean, it's with, like, we know from historical fact that government agents and all those people from all levels have been a part of the Klan. Right.
And like, really, like, at one point they were literally endorsed by the government. If you go back to the time when the first film was produced, 1918, Birth of a Nation, right? Which is still considered a masterpiece of filming by the filming industry.
D.W. Griffith, old pussy.
So so for me, it's like, okay, they get declared a terrorist organization. How does that change things for black people?
It doesn't change anything for black people. I mean, like you said, the movie Birth of a Nation literally was a rallying cry for the re-emergence of the Ku Klux Klan. This is like about around the time Reconstruction is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And we know Reconstruction was 10 years, and then for Jim Crow to be ushered in, because Jim Crow was right after Reconstruction, it was ushered in. Jim Crow was ushered in through the Klan. Making sure they go around terrorizing black folk and putting niggers back in their place.
Right. It was a direct response to Reconstruction and to losing the war between the North and the South.
Right. So, in conjunction with this bullet point, the next one is lynching to become a federal hate crime with the recommended federal sentence of life. So, how are we classifying lynching?
Um, I thought lynching was already a federal hate crime.
Well, let's look it up.
Yeah, I was just gonna say let's look that up. We both on computers. Um, so the House passed legislation in February of this year to make it a federal hate crime, but I don't know that it was actually picked up by the Senate. Oh wait. So let me see.
So I see some say July 11, 2020 say Rand Paul stalls bill that would make lynching a federal hate crime. Like I said, this July 11, amid the visceral national outcry for racial justice in the wake of the police killing of George Floyd, a lone U.S. senator is standing in the way of a bill that would make lynching a federal hate crime. Rand Paul, a Republican with a reputation as a one-man awkward squad. They called him a one-man awkward squad. And the U.S. Senate has to put their historic legislation into limbo, frustrating black colleagues and civil rights leaders, including Reverend Jesse Messi Jackson. About 4,075 African Americans were lynched in 12 southern states between 1877 and 1950 by Equal Justice. According to a report by Equal Justice Initiative, some were watched by crowds as if attending a form of public entertainment. So according to this article, so far,
Yeah, it hasn't.
Okay.
It hasn't passed. I'm looking at it right now. It's actually the HR 35. Matter of fact, here, I'll drop it in the screen right here. The Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act. HR 35. It passed the House on a roll call vote. It was received in the Senate, and basically ain't nothing happened in the Senate.
Right.
So, yeah. So, here's my thoughts on that, though. Like, again, what does that change for black people? You still got to convict the motherfucker. You know, you still, like, it's hard to get a hate crime conviction.
Right.
So, again, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what does that really change? It's one of them things. It sounds nice. It feels good. And I'm not saying it shouldn't happen. But from my position is looking at these things from the position of what benefits black people. How does this benefit black people? It's already a crime. So you make it a hate crime with a federal life sentence. So now they get 50 years instead of the time that they would normally get. But that, like, since when has punishment in that nature of a racial nature ever stopped people from committing crimes?
Yeah. You're still not dealing with the overall culture.
You're not.
So that's one of the main things about this is it's not dealing with the overall culture. So I don't this will definitely spark civil war between black. Let's just be real. Let's call it what it is, man.
Oh, you went there with it.
Man, Pat, you think these white folk gonna go down without a fight?
Well, considering he asking these white folk to do it, they probably just look at him and laugh.
I mean, right. But seriously though, like, so you think like the KKK really just gonna go down without a fight? Like, they haven't, like, the Hell's Angels and stuff, they don't even look at them the same way. They look at the Bloods and the Crips.
Yeah, nah, it ain't gonna happen like we seem to think it's gonna happen. Like, that's for damn sure. But this is another one right along with the first few that we looked at, where again I'm just like, how does that change? And it, like, this so far, all of these are like make black people feel good, like make black people feel like you care. That's what all of these things are. Not real tangible change. Just make black people feel like you care.
Because the overall sentiment needs to be true liberation, true equity, a true chance to compete as a group. I'm gonna keep reiterating that. And if we're not focused on that, then we ain't talking about that. Like I want, because this is really like we want to force these white people to do this, and if these white people don't do this, then we want to have consequences for these white people. But you also are expecting white people to hold white people accountable.
Yep. So
they literally haven't been doing that. Like literally for hundreds of years have not been doing that. Literally. So what are we talking about now? So this is a document that's going to say, all right, this is going to make white people hold white people accountable. I don't know about that, B. Like I don't like everything. I like this. The overall idea of it. I like some of the points. And I ain't even saying he should have sat down with us, but he probably need to sit down with Dr. Anderson or something to make it, make it tougher, man, and make it more impactful, to make it not like, hey guys, let's play nice.
I don't think he should have made it at all with the frame of reference that he chose to make it from. Like, Black America needs a contract with Black America. We don't need a contract with white people. Like, we need to make terms and promises and assurances to ourselves for what we're going to do. Like, and that needs to happen before we even start interacting with other culture groups. So I see this whole thing as putting the cart before the horse.
Well, that's why I said so earlier that you're still not dealing with the pipeline culture.
Right.
Like, you got to start America over. And look, because this is what this is talking about, starting America over. Really, at the core, is we got to start America over so America can treat Black people fairly. And there has to be something something in place to make white people really give up power, money, resources, all that. Like, what do we really have to make white people do that? Like a whole military backing would, but like we don't have no military backup. Like it would be great to have like the continent as a whole of Africa to be like, we don't care what it is. We'll mount up as a continent and come bust y'all heads wide open. Now, if we had that, then, we can get a whole lot of things changed. But right now, we don't have the firepower, whether it's internal or external, to make these things stick. But and once again, like I said last week, I think our focus needs to be more so on us building for ourselves and creating for ourselves and protecting what we build and create.
Yeah. So then we moved. The next point was free nonviolent offenders incarcerated for 10 years or longer who have less than 5 verifiable write-ups. Write-ups can be challenged and given due process. Shit, I'm waiting on you.
Shit. I don't have no problem with that. Like, I really have no argument with that. Like, nonviolent offenders, like, why are you spending 10 years? I really have no argument with that. Like, I was reading over it again just to make sure I was processing it correct. But I don't.
Yeah, I don't have no problem with that one either. I actually think that's a good point.
Yeah. It is. Like, that should be happening. That should be happening right now.
Yeah, like that's like tangible impact. Like, because there are a lot of Black people incarcerated for vast stretches of time for nonviolent offenses. So, like, that's real.
I saw something yesterday. A young man was gave a young man like 30 years for a $50 crime. And of course, a black dude.
Yeah, and that's where I say it's real because sure, some white people would get out too, but we know black people are more likely to get these longer sentences for lesser crimes.
Right.
So this is one of those things where you could tangibly say would have a disproportionate impact on the black community, and that impact will be positive in terms of black people gaining their freedom. Now, from a black progressive standpoint, we also want those people when they get out and come home to have opportunities to contribute to society, to get a job, to work, to live. So, I would even say some of those people probably need to be compensated for the time lost. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
But I don't have no problem with this point.
Nah.
The next point, free all prisoners for marijuana possession. I'm gonna be honest. And I'm not a heavy marijuana user, but I'm going to be honest. I feel like that's some bullshit. I feel like that's some, you know what I'm saying? I feel like that's some popular where everybody smokes. So, like, I feel like that's just some bullshit. You know what I'm saying?
I guess it's coming from a standpoint of, well, if you got motherfuckers, if you got white people out here making money off of marijuana, like legally now, then all the black people who've been locked up from it need to be freed. I'm guessing that's the point that's coming from with that.
No, I ain't got no problem with that neither. I really don't have no problem with that. But a lot of the problems I do have with a lot of this document stems from the lack of the what and the lack of the why and the how. Like why? Now, if you can articulate, well, because marijuana is not illegal and there are like marijuana companies now, then that's fine. But I know large groups of people that were proclaiming that all people should be free from marijuana possession for marijuana charges before that even happened. We talking about going back 10 years.
Yeah.
15 years with people like, man, everybody locked up on weed possession should be set free. So that's why my first instinct whenever I hear that now, because I've been hearing it for the past 15 plus years, is just, man, that's some bullshit, man. Get the fuck out of here. Come on.
I mean, I don't like the fact that motherfuckers can just make money off of it legally. Now, out in the open, and people have been locked up for doing the same thing, like trying to do it.
Right.
That's that bull. So I'm gonna always have that problem with the weed game.
That's fair.
Moving forward. I would say this is something that has to be adjusted. So if you were just out there trying to dope boy it, then yeah, you need to serve your time. But if you just got caught with like a little bit, it was sack in your pocket or something like that. Yeah, like stop that, like free that person. So.
Yeah, now I do feel like people that got locked up for being addicts or for being like users, I feel like those people should be set free. And honestly, I don't care what it was they was using. Like I don't feel like you should be imprisoned for basically harming yourself. Now, I know that conversation is a lot broader than that in terms of the damage they may have done to other people trying to get their fix or whatever the case might be. But I agree with that point you just made, especially with regard to marijuana. I don't feel like anybody should be in prison because they smoke weed.
Right.
Like, now that is ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the dumbest things ever. But that's what's happening. So with that, I would say all those people, especially black people who have been locked up for just being users, just smoking weed, let their ass go. Now, if you out there trying to
build a weed empire,
like make property with weed, then yeah, that's different.
And I don't really have a problem with the second one either. Eliminating laws establishing mandatory minimums. I honestly think there needs to be laws that establish mandatory, or not mandatory, but that establish maximum sentences where you can't sentence a person above blah, blah, blah. And I know there are laws out there like that, but I feel like they need to be adjusted. But I don't have a problem with eliminating eliminating mandatory minimums. I feel like we have judges, and they should be allowed to consider extenuating circumstances in their judgments. And I feel like that gives power to those judges who do want to help out black people in the courtroom by saying, I understand your situation where you came from, so I'm not going to give you 10 years versus now where it's like, well, I by law can't give you less than 10 years. So I think that's a good one too, eliminating mandatory minimums.
I'm gonna be honest. This is something that's one I've never really looked that deep into, to be honest. So, but I don't have a problem with it. But I'm not that knowledgeable about the effect of mandatory minimums. I may be, but just like the language of a mandatory minimums. So you're saying that this is something like, all right, judge come in, you automatically get 10.
Yeah, it's basically like for certain crimes, a judge isn't allowed to consider extenuating circumstances. They have to give you at least this many years.
Right. I got you. So yeah, now eliminate 3 strikes. Yes, I don't like 3 strikes, but at the same time, can't just be out here just doing everything here and just trying to have a life of a criminal now.
I think that has to be. I wouldn't say eliminated, but I think it needs to be adjusted and only applied in certain scenarios.
Yeah. Now, because we know most black people are affected by the 3 strike rule.
So yeah. So first offense for illegal drug use or possession to require government payment for entry into an approved drug rehabilitation program rather than imprisonment.
But I don't have a problem with that.
Wait, so they're saying that if you get caught using drugs or carrying drugs, the government will pay. They want the government to pay for you to go to an approved drug rehabilitation program.
They're doing it for these white folk on these opioids.
Well, that's true.
So that's why I'm saying that like that, because if you're a white person these days and you get caught with these opioids, they're going to find a drug rehab program for you rather than just locking your ass up.
I guess I don't like possession. Like, so if you're a user and it's verified that you're a user, that's one thing. But sending a dope boy and I know that's an extreme. People are going to be like, y'all acting like all black people sell dope. Nah, but these programs are going to be interacting with dope black boys people regularly.
Right.
Like, because they're the ones that are moving the drugs. And don't confuse the issue. Just because I say dope boy don't mean I'm talking about black people. You know, like dope boys is white people too. Matter of fact, most of the dope boys I know are white people.
And they wear suits and they got real good government jobs.
Right. So I'm looking at it from that perspective too, because it ain't like this shit is like race specific, even though it's a contract with Black America.
But we also know how black people are characterized and stigmatized, and so a black person who sells drugs will get a harsher sentence than a white person who sells drugs.
Right.
So you have to be able to understand that. So when we're talking about dope boys, we don't want black dope boys to just be thrown under the jail while white dope boys are seen as, hey man, he's a kid who just made a mistake. Let's put him in this program, and the program gonna help him get better. Why Tyrone over here just rotting away? But Tyrone and Hunter doing the same thing.
But I also think you kind of got to get people to have skin in the game in order to get real change to happen. And so my thing is, if the government pays for it, will that affect the efficacy of the program if people don't have to you know what I'm saying, any direct skin in the game for getting in the program and creating the change? And that's a question. That's not a statement.
I guess if the thing is, because you're going to have some people who don't take it serious. Let's just be real.
Right.
You're gonna have that. But the thing is, drug rehab or prison. Most people gonna choose drug rehab. Now, whether people take it serious or not, that's one thing. But at the same time, hell, a lot of people ain't taking prison serious.
True.
So
true. So, and then the next one, I really don't have a problem with the next one at all. I think that's a good one. I agree with it wholeheartedly. Once a prisoner completes their sentence, voting rights are restored. I agree with that. I think once you finish your term, all of your rights should be fully restored.
Yeah. Personal data. Most states publicly release bulk data about arrests unchecked, like the 1975 Credit Reporting Act. Regarding credit data, there must be guidelines that allow similar privacy and accuracy protections and the right to dispute and correct inaccurate data. I'm gonna be honest. I don't like the book and report thing. I'm not a person who is gung ho over the book and report. I know a lot of people who like to go to the book and report, who might go to the book and report on a daily basis to see who's been booked or not. But I personally, I don't champion that personally.
I'm with you, and I like this one as well. I don't like the book and report, especially for the reason that was mentioned. Like just because you was booked don't mean that you're guilty of anything.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So now if they wanted to change it to be like a conviction report, these are the people that were convicted and this is what they were convicted for, I still might have a problem with it, but I wouldn't have as big a problem with it as I do with the booking report. So I think I agree with you.
It's entertainment for a lot of people. And I just because a person has committed a crime don't mean they got to be turned into a damn jester.
Yeah. So the next one is the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice reform through stricter guidelines so DOJ oversight of police departments and other government institutions becomes more than a rubber stamp. DOJ can be sued for noncompliance so that standards do not vary depending on administration. I feel like this is one of the few points where they tried to put teeth into it. Question becomes,
Well, who the fuck is civil?
Well, you got who the fuck is civil, but who also is going to be doing the suing? You know what I'm saying? And what do you mean by, stricter guidelines? Who's determining the stricter guidelines? DOJ oversight of the police departments. That is not really going to fix anything. I'm just being honest with that. Having the government oversee the government doesn't create change. If you want oversight of police departments, you need to create a citizen review committee that actually has teeth.
Yeah, so help me understand, because when you were saying that, it was saying DOJ oversight. Well, who does the oversight currently for police departments? And what role does DOJ play into that?
So the DOJ has a role to play in making sure that the police are doing their job, especially with regards to hate crimes and race-based crimes and things of that nature. But the relationship between the DOJ and police departments is very, very friendly. So that friendliness, go figure, right? That friendliness kind of gets in the way of, in a lot of people's opinion, it kind of gets in the way of the DOJ having proper oversight of police departments. And in my opinion, what those people don't understand is that the DOJ and the police department have the same objective. They're the same mission. They're different levels of the same big ass building that's smashing you over the head. So it's kind of like why wouldn't they have a friendly relationship? You know what I'm saying? Why would the DOJ go on record and constantly be prosecuting, persecuting, and going after its street team, which is essentially what the police department is for the Department of Justice? The police department is their street team. So I don't. It's one of them things. This is another one of those. Well, that's cute. But the reason it's a rubber stamp is because the DOJ itself agrees with what's happening in the police departments. And this, in my opinion, is proven by the fact that the police departments aren't required to submit data and statistics, even to the FBI's databases. They aren't required to submit.
Well, I mean, that's why I was trying to get an understanding, because if DOJ plays some role in monitoring police activity, or even trying to keep people in check, make sure people are doing what they're supposed to do, if DOJ has some role in that, they've been failing like a motherfucker.
I think they've been succeeding.
Well, I mean, they've been failing in keeping us safe, but they've been succeeding in doing, keeping the blue line.
That's the DOJ's job. And I know a lot of people that work in DOJ would argue me down, and I would let them, because I'm not interested in arguing. We have a fundamental difference of opinion. The DOJ's job is to maintain the status quo and to maintain the confidence that the average American has in the Department of Justice. And I got news for you, black people. The average American is not black. The American that they're trying to maintain confidence is a white person that don't like black people.
Yeah.
Or at the very least, we won't say don't like, but at the very least is uncomfortable and doesn't like the idea of giving up their power and their control for black people. So that's where I go back to looking at this, and I'm like, why would the DOJ even do any of this?
I mean, right. Once again, I don't trust the government to keep the government in check when the government have not been keeping the government in check. All right. So it says currently the black population is overrepresented in the military, as 17% of soldiers are black. The percentage of black enlisted soldiers is even higher. To compensate for this disproportionate contribution to our national defense, 5% of the Defense Department budget will be allocated towards beautification, education, and youth programs in predominantly black neighborhoods. Such programs will build goodwill towards the country, resulting in greater patriotism, more successful recruitment efforts, and generally more enthusiastic military population. All right, hold on, let me read that again.
Yeah, because it's some bullshit.
Currently, the black population is overrepresented in the military at 17% of soldiers are black. Mm-hmm. Okay. The percentage of black enlisted soldiers is even higher. Mm-hmm. To compensate for this disproportionate contribution to our national defense, 5% of the Defense Department budget will be allocated towards beautification, education, and youth programs in predominantly black neighborhoods. Such programs will build goodwill towards the country, resulting in greater patriotism, more successful recruitment efforts, and generally more enthusiastic military population. Wouldn't it create more of a pipeline of black people going to the military?
Absolutely. That's what that whole last sentence was basically saying. If you do this, you'll get more black people joining the military and more black people proud to be Americans. So this is from a holistically assimilationist mindset. This sounds like I've been reading this book called the Creation of the Model Minority, and it's about how the Asians became basically the model minority in America. Mm-hmm. And basically a good chunk of the book is spent on this debate that the Asian community has been having since they got here, which is, do we assimilate into white America and get them to like us, or do we try to retain our sense of identity and our cultural pride and try to do something more akin to integration? And as we see in a lot of regards, the assimilationist wing of the Chinese community, the Asian community, has won out, because they have, by and large, been embraced and accepted their Americanism. This is the debate that black people are currently going through right now without the backing of a whole nation like the Chinese have had. And this point is offensively bad. And I've only said that twice. Now I said it earlier with the modern military, the modern monetary theory point, and now I'm saying it again. I'm saying it so people understand. I'm saying it as a vet. Like, I was a black person in the military, served 8 years, right? 6 years active duty, a year active reserve, a year inactive reserve. I served 8 years, right? I tell every kid that I come in contact with to stay as far away from the military as possible.
Why is that?
One of the worst experiences of my life in terms of being disrespected, in terms of people feeling like they were better than me, in terms of being checked for my blackness. And these are stories that you hear all of the time. They just color them differently. Every time you hear of an old black person talking about, I just had to let them know that they weren't going to treat me like this. And that's a story of an old black person telling you that they were disrespected in the military for being black. It's just colored in such a way that you feel like, oh, we overcame some shit. Me as a black person going through those experiences, I don't have that view of, oh, it was the best thing for me once I got these white people to understand that I was, fuck all of that. Why put yourself through that? No. Right. If America wants more black people to become soldiers, America should treat black people better, like they give a damn.
Yeah, treat us like human beings, before you expect us to die for you.
Right. And so this is where I'm like, okay, so 17% of soldiers are black, more if you include the enlisted numbers, and it is more. I think it's the lowest one is around 20% for enlisted. And most black people go into the military enlisted, not as officers.
But even in that, why is that number at 17%? A lot of black people go to the military because that's the best way that they can pay for college or get out of the damn hood or get out of the circumstances.
Right. And so it's what they view as an only option.
Right.
So, but it's not a good option.
Right.
Like, it's not you're literally like, and we seen it with this last administration with Bush, or we saw it with Bush. We're seeing it now with Trump. These motherfuckers at the drop of a dime.
We've seen it with Obama.
Yeah, with Obama too. These motherfuckers could decide at the drop of a dime that they want to send soldiers somewhere. And even though these black kids are getting no love and no respect and no support at home, they're expected to go somewhere else and die for the ideals that they've never been experienced in this country. And so, and the other point is, there's no such thing as string-free defense spending. Like, if the Department of Defense is giving you money, there's strings attached to it. Right. So you want strings attached to money going into a black community with the purpose of making the community look good, indoctrinating the community, because whenever we see education, that's essentially what we talk about, indoctrination, and youth programs, more indoctrination outside of school in predominantly black neighborhoods. And then they actually have the audacity. Now, I will say this, whoever wrote these last few points is actually probably a better writer than whoever wrote the first few, because these ones actually have whys in them. They don't have hows in them, but they have whys in them. Mm-hmm. But then they have the audacity to say that it's a good thing for black people. And this is where I think a white person probably wrote this, or somebody that was really channeling their inner white person. It's a good thing for black people to be more patriotic towards America.
That's what and that's the thing. Like, we don't owe America no type of patriotism. Like, first of all, black people are the most patriotic people in America already. But we don't owe America any patriotism, and we shouldn't even be looking to be any type of patriot in these goddamn in this country, the way people been treating us. Like, don't try to sell us. Don't try to sell the idea of black patriotism just to get more black people to die for a country that don't give a damn about it.
Right, and that's why this is offensive. Because it's like, yo, we want the money, and in exchange for you giving us the money, we're willing to send more of our kids to happily go die for a country that can't stand their fucking guts.
Right. For a country that we had to put this contract with to just get to treat us equally.
So, like, whoever wrote this point don't need to be making no kind of deals for black people.
Yeah, I hate that point. I really hate that. I wipe my ass for that point. I really hate that point.
That is an actively negative point. Like, I could do a whole show on Lessons from the Screen just digging into all of the things that's wrong with that point. Like, that point has me a little bit heated. Like, I'm a little bit upset that I just read this in this document. And that last sentence is a motherfucking kicker. I hope a white person wrote that last sentence.
More successful recruitment efforts in a generally more enthusiastic military population.
Because that's exactly what we need in Black America, right? A more enthusiastic view of the military in America in the black population. That's exactly, yeah, okay.
Why the police still treating us like shit.
Right. And they treat you like shit in the military. I haven't met a single black person yet that hasn't got out of the military with some sort of story to tell about a time where they was mistreated by their fellow soldiers that were white. I haven't met a single one. And I've had multiple. Now, I had some white people that was real cool to me in the military, but I had multiple instances of being disrespected simply because I was black. Multiple. I could write a book on them, and it'd be a long book. Anyways, fuck that point.
So the last two, or the second to the last.
The last two, yeah.
EPA to inspect water supplies in all communities nationwide for lead and other forms of contaminants, fixing polluted water systems to deliver clean water. Hold up, stop. Because I know this has something to do with Flint, with what's going on in Flint. Right, but Ice Cube is a part of the people who have the money to have fixed those pipes in Flint.
Absolutely. I guess they feel like it ain't their responsibility to fix them, though.
But if you're so concerned, like just the pipes in Flint could have been fixed. Like Flint has the same water in 2020 it had 6 years ago.
I think some people went in and tried to fix some of the pipes, but I don't think all of the pipes have been fixed.
I know some black lady got awarded the contract to fix some pipes, but I don't know if it actually happened or not.
Right.
But Cube and them are a part of a group of people who got the money to fix those pipes.
Yeah, because they said it would only cost, $50 million to fix those pipes?
Yeah. So that's $1 million from 50 black people who got millions.
Yeah, because remember we had that conversation on the show because I think, who was it, Will Smith's son raised like $10 million to send bottled water into Flint.
Right. And you could have sent that to get the damn pipes. Y'all could have just fixed the pipes.
Yeah. Well, when you add up all of the bottled water that's been sent to Flint, I'm pretty sure it equals more in monetary value than it would have cost to just fix the fucking pipes. I'm positive of that. Yeah. But nah, I'm with you. And then the thing with me is, like, I keep going back to, like, y'all expect the government to fix. Like, look at the government we have right now. The EPA has been gutted, and the people that are in place have leadership that don't want them to do their jobs. What do you think the EPA is going to do?
Yeah, you're asking a lot from a government who's continually showed us that they don't give a damn. You're asking a lot, and I guess they're saying this contract is going to be the reason all of this happens.
And then here. This word in all caps. All communities.
Right.
So again,
in a contract with Black America, and they capitalized it.
Right. Straight capitalized. But I guess this is that appeal to white liberalism and the white guilt, white sensibilities, but also an appeal or a play to show, hey, we're being fair. It's a contract with Black Americans, but we don't just care about Black Americans. We care about everybody.
So stop calling it a contract with Black America. Just say a contract with poor people against America.
And then we got this next one that says technology action plans that provides for computers and broadband in poor communities. Work with tech companies to set up high security 24-hour computer lab learning centers in the heart of technology deserts. I disagree with this one for the simple fact that it's inviting white people in to teach black people about things that black people could learn about. And the reason I say that is because they're focused on work with tech companies to set up high security 24-hour computer lab learning. Those 9 times out of 10 are going to be the high profile white tech companies that have the resources to do something like that.
Right.
But the question then becomes, and I understand living in a tech desert. I understand living in a place where you don't have access to the internet.
We all understand that we black.
Right.
Good.
But here's the rub, right? The assumption is made that that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Like, technology has ruined a lot of societies and cultures. Now, I know I'm getting on my shtick about, because I feel like technology has advanced faster than human culture, and we not morally equipped to handle the sort of power we have. Social media is a prime indication of that. Resource to interact and network with people all over the world, and we use it to be stupid. So, but the assumption here that, I can't help but think about all of the cultures I've read about where somebody went in thinking if we give these people computers, it'll fix everything and their quality of living will be upgraded. And what it actually did was create a huge divide between the elders and the youth and destroyed those people culturally.
Well, yeah, I mean, technology isn't a fix to everything. We understand that the world is moving more toward technology, but technology isn't a fix toward the things that's going on in the black community. I would rather you concentrate on fixing poverty than not having technology.
Right. There are other things you could do. Now, the broadband thing, I understand making it so that everybody that wants technology or wants access to the internet can have access to the internet. So I get that piece, but the computer piece, I feel like, and I honestly, even with me, I'm a hardcore tech guy. Like, I love computers and technology, but I also see where there are skills that you tend to lose out on when you dive into this shit, like the ability to be a part of an agricultural system, which is what we're finding out in all of these other countries, all of these other cultures all over the world, where white people are going in and giving the people computers, and then in 2 generations, or in a generation really, the kids no longer speak their tribal language, and they don't know how to grow the fucking food.
Well, yeah, agricultural things would be more valuable than technology things.
Yeah, teach people, get people in there that can teach these communities how to feed themselves, how to clothe themselves, and how to take care of themselves. And they'll get to the technology later. But I feel like there's been a dependency developed, and to this point, and this might not be the intention of this point, so I'm not putting that on them. I'm just saying the way I read it, this seems like it would build a dependency on technology amongst poor communities that don't have the resources to support that type of dependency, which I guess would be why it would be a dependency in the first place. I mean, I know a few people whose heads would explode if they lost access to Facebook.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have too much of a dependence on technology, but I don't have a problem with eliminating technology deserts or giving more people access to technology.
I don't.
But it's not that great of priority over something like agriculture or eliminating food deserts.
Definitely food deserts has to come first, in my opinion. Education deserts as well, because there are places where, and so in the section called public policy reform, I don't see any changes to public policy regarding education in here.
Yeah, Because
But
that
you
is, yes,
brought
that
up
is,
tech deserts.
yeah, because that's what we just covered. Judicial and public policy reform.
Right. So you covered tech deserts, but you didn't cover food deserts. You didn't cover educational requirements. You didn't cover positive expression deserts.
So, real quick, since this is only 1 point, let's hit this constitutional amendment codifying expansion. Just real quick, since it's one.
Okay. Says this amendment will abolish slavery in any form, including as a punishment for crime, as allowed by the 13th Amendment for prison inmates. Further, it will declare unconstitutional any government-run system, including justice, policing, education, health, and welfare, etc., that does not provide services on an equal basis to all citizens and communities. If provided public services fail to meet minimum standards, they will be considered on their face unconstitutional unless proven special circumstances. Reverses burden of proof to those in non-compliance instead of civil rights lawyers having to prove systems or races. While courts have expanded the interpretation of the 13th Amendment to provide some of these rights, this amendment will eliminate any uncertainty.
Okay, amendment will abolish slavery in any form, including as punishment for crime, as allowed by the 13th Amendment for prison inmates. Certain crimes, I mean, hey, don't be a serial killer.
I guess my view is interesting because people be like, slavery is wrong in any fashion. And I'm not saying it's not. But I don't view being punished for a crime as slavery.
Right.
Like, so I feel like,
especially like a real crime.
Right. Like, I feel like when people throw these things around, they devalue the term slave, in terms of what those people really went through, and they draw a false connection. If I'm using the definition of slavery that a lot of these people use when they're talking, and I understand that was the language used in the Constitution, but I feel like even in that, people are making a lot of false equivalencies. The Constitution, I feel like, trust me, I'm not somebody that's going to sit here and say it's a perfect document, but I feel like it was written that way. From all of the reading and research that I've done, I've come to the conclusion that it was written that way in order to prevent inmates from getting out of work by saying that this is slavery and you can't punish me in this way. Now, for all of these people that have an issue with people being forced to work without pay, how many of these people have children that they forced to do chores without giving them an allowance or without giving them minimum wage?
Yeah.
Ain't that the same fucking thing? When your kid disobey your laws in your house and you ground them and say no television, no, you got to stay in your room, you got to clean up your room, you got to cut the grass, all of these other punishments you put out there for your kid, do you make them sign? Right. Like, do you have to get their consent to do that? No. They live in your fucking house, they play by your fucking rules. Welcome to America. This ain't your fucking house.
Well, like I say, sir, it needs to be restructured. The Constitution was written for a specific way to maintain a status quo and to always have a labor force from the criminals that you have and be able to get wealth being built for low cost. So people have to understand that. But like I said, don't be a serial killer if you don't want to if you don't want to hit the chain gang, don't be a serial killer.
Right.
Like now, for people to be put on the chain gang just because you was arrested because you were black, now that's that bullshit.
Right. But that's not that. To me, I agree with you wholeheartedly. To me, though, the issue with that is that you didn't commit a crime.
Right. You were accused of a crime and you were prosecuted and all those things illegally, and all those things happen. But now we're thinking about it in that way. We want to make sure that innocent black people are not being placed. They're not being in prison. They're not being convicted, and they're not given long sentences. None of that, just for being black or being falsely accused for something. We don't want that happening. But how does this prevent that?
It doesn't. It essentially removes the ability to punish people. And now, if you want to transition the prison system from a punitive system to a rehabilitative system, again, I got no problem with that. But you need to spell out how that system's gonna work. You know what I'm saying? You need to do the legwork to figure out how that system looks, how it works. Now, I have a huge problem with people being convicted for shit that they didn't do, falsely convicted, being convicted for being black. But that is a separate issue from how we treat people that have been convicted. It's a separate issue, and I feel like it's wrong to put those things together. If a motherfucker kill you or do some crazy shit to you or your family,
you ain't gonna punish to the fullest extent.
Right. You ain't gonna be worried about they fucking. Now, I agree, prisoners have human rights, so you don't fucking be in there beating them and slapping them off. You know, you don't be doing shit like that. But ain't nothing wrong with making a goddamn convicted criminal do a hard day's work of manual labor and shit. Give them a proper meal. Make sure they got necessary resources so they're not being malnourished. But work them. What else would you have them do? Sit in school all day? Not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but we have a punitive system.
But that has to be right. And there's nothing in that. I'm glad you said that, because there's nothing in that to change the system from a punitive system to a rehabilitation system. And that's basically what they're trying to say. They want more rehabilitation than punishment, but you have everything is built off of punishment. Everything is built off of black labor, white wealth. Everything is built off that. So still, once again, because to me, we kind of, even in looking at this point as we talk about it more, I feel like we're going to be repeating ourselves, because this is one of the things where you want the government to hold itself accountable for all the fuck shit it's been doing for hundreds of years and getting away with it and making money off of it. And you want them to just stop doing that because we want them to do that. And we want the government to stop doing that, but we're realistic enough to know that they're not just going to stop doing that, and they have to be made to do that. So what power do we have, or do we need to get to make them do that? And I feel like we need to have a whole country backing this.
Well, in order for us to move the way we have, and this is why I'm a fan of studying other cultures, but I'm not really a fan of trying to use a lot of those things, because other cultures have an entire country backing them. It changes how you can move and what you can do. We don't. We're on our own, so we can learn things from them, but we can't do what they do.
So we have to figure out our own internal and external pressures that would make the government start treating us right.
Right. And so even moving on to the next point, it would declare any government-run system that does not provide services on an equal basis to all citizens and communities unconstitutional. How are you determining what's equal and what's not? You know what I'm saying? Because somebody could make the case that the reason why the cops are in black communities all the time is because that's where all of the crimes are happening. So from that perspective, it looks fair and equitable. Most of the criminals are in the black community, so they spend most of their time in the black community looking for criminals. Now, we know better, but...
Well, from a communal basis, they have a point, but that's not overall correct, because crimes happen everywhere. But we do know you're going to have more crime in poor neighborhoods, because the damn neighborhoods have been set up to be poor neighborhoods have been set up to have more crime.
But that's kind of my point. Like, what are you looking at when you determine if something is equitable? You know what I'm saying? And here's the real thing, right? Does equity mean even across the board in this case? Or does equity mean commensurate with the requirements?
But it still comes down to a white standard. It's still a white standard, though. Because we're equal to what? Whiteness.
And so that's where exactly. So that's why I said, are we talking about proportions, or are we talking about across the board equality? These are terms that have to be defined, because they can start playing these games: color of the law, spirit of the law, intent of the law. They can start playing all these games. The next thing reverses the burden of proof of those in non-compliance, instead of civil rights lawyers having to prove systems of races. I think it sounds nice, but I don't think it means anything, because if the judge is the one making the determination and you say my company is racist, and I can show the judge where I hired 3 black people just last week, don't you lose?
I mean, hell, you can't get the president to denounce racism. I mean, like a judge, because what will determine what racism is? Because what I think is racist, somebody else may not think is racist, especially old racist ass white person. They'll be like, well, that's the way it's supposed to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So all of the, and like I said, I can see where, especially with this last point, I can see where somebody who wrote that or who was reading that might be like, yeah, that sound good. But from a black progressive standpoint, I don't believe you. You need more people.
Hey man, you know. Once again, we're breaking this thing down. I mean, we just want to make sure that what we getting is something that's really gonna be there for us. That's really gonna help us. That's really gonna make sure that Black America is taken care of. If we ain't doing that, then we tripping, man. Oh, yeah, here we go. You back. So we tripping. If we not really properly assessing everything that's supposed to be for us, because I mean, I'm just being real. You call it a contract with Black America, but it sounded like something where they want white people to. Well, you're asking white people to play nice, but we don't really have the tools to get them to play nice. So that's where we at. You got any parting shots?
In your motherfucking mouth.
You supposed to do the little thing that you had. The little small head pat.
I ain't got that open right now. I have it open for the next one.
Hey man, real Black power, real Black liberation. That's my parting shot. Let's not just go for frivolous, what they call the moral victories. We need tangible shit, real tangible stuff that's gonna really empower Black people. So with that being said, 2 fingers in the air like a player, because we up out of here. See our website, www.freedomtrainradio.com. Holla at your homeboy. It's really going down.